So normally in order to create a custom post type, I would code it using something like TypeRocket, but I think in order to make this a little bit more accessible for most people, I'm going to use a plugin. The plugins that I'm going to use is, I think one of them is called Advanced Custom Fields and then Custom Post Type UI. So Custom Post Type UI. And let's go ahead and install that. And then Advanced Custom Fields. Here. So these two plugins allow you to create a custom post type and then create custom meta boxes for that custom post type. Like I said, I would normally do something with TypeRocket, which you've seen in some of my videos. I use TypeRocket to actually build the custom post type using TypeRocket's framework, and it's something you can integrate into your theme rather than having to download a plugin. Okay, so I installed the wrong plugin. This is Advanced Custom Fields Extended. We don't need Extended. So let's go ahead and delete that one. We need the actual Advanced Custom Fields. So Advanced Custom Fields, and let's not get the extended one. This is the one we were looking for with the green icon. This one over here was the one we installed that was looking for this one, didn't see it installed, so it just gave us an error. But that's activated now. Custom Post Type UI is also activated now. So we have these two new sections in our administration. So first thing we're going to do is fill out the Custom Post Type UI. And the custom post types that we want to create, the first one is going to be practice areas, and then we'll create another one for the team, but let's start off with the practice areas. So add or edit custom post types, and we're going to call this one practice areas. So practice areas, and then we want to have the slug as practice area. And then the singular label will be practice area as well. And I think that's all we need to do for that. I think the only other thing that we need to worry about is if you scroll down, there is an icon that you can select. So somewhere in here. No, we don't want to choose image icon. We want to use dash icon. So if you click on this, I'm opening it up in a new tab. And inside of this new tab, let's see, we want to use which one represents, let's just use something with a square in it. So it'll be easy for the client to recognize it, and if it's used somewhere else, it won't really matter for us. So let's use this one. So we're going to copy the class name for it, and then we're going to paste that class name, and then we're going to add post type, and you can see now we have a practice areas post type. And if we go into it, it just gives us the title and the description. So let's go ahead and not go into it, and now we're going to go to the custom fields, and we're going to add some custom fields for the practice areas. So let's do add new, and then we're going to type in practice areas so that we know what we want it to do here. And if the post type is equal to practice area, we want it to display the box. So let's do, first one we want to do is icon, and let's make it a select window. So field type select. And the icons, I'm just going to put in some dummy icons from Font Awesome. So the choices are going to be the Font Awesome class, and then what's actually going to appear in the select window. So book, and then book is the actual selectable item. So this is what's going to be passed to the shortcodes. This is what the user is going to see when they go to select it. It is a required field because we want to have these icons based on this. So this is what we're going to be updating with these icons from Font Awesome, and it's just basically going to be calling that class from Font Awesome. I think that's all good. Stylized UI, just to make it pretty whenever they go to use it. The return format's going to be value, and then that's all for that one. And then the next part, based on, again, this, we want to have the blurb that goes here. So let's create a new field. We're going to call it blurb. And then that's going to just give us the ability to add a text area where they can add in some text. We're also going to make it a required field as well. And I don't think we need anything else for this. So that should be it. Let's just publish this out now. So now, if we go back to practice areas and we go to add new, now we have an icon and a blurb that they have to put in order to submit something. So let me create a sample practice area. So let's call this one service 1, and then I'm just going to grab some dummy text for the description. Come on, let me copy it. Okay, apparently it's not going to let me copy the whole thing. So copy, paste that in. I'm just going to paste it 3 times so we have 3 paragraphs. And then let's say this one is going to be book, and I'm just going to copy in a blurb, which is, let's just say it's this and that. So now we have the icon and the blurb for service 1. So let's publish it out. And if we go to view practice area, we can see that it's displaying. I mean, it's not pretty because we don't have the single page created for this, but it's actually displaying our practice area service 1 the way we want it to. So we're on the right path. All right, so now let's get out of this, and we want to take over here, we want to see how this is producing itself here so that we can duplicate it. And we also want to create this shortcode over here. So I'm going to switch over to Visual Studio, and we're going to create shortcodes. So let's say inside of Visual Studio, inside of this theme, we're going to create a new folder called Shortcodes. And then inside of this folder, we're going to create a file called Practice Areas. And this is just for me to show you how to split it out so that you can create your functionality elsewhere and then come back to it. So let's go ahead and create a simple shortcode that displays those links that we were looking for. So let's do function, and let's call it practice areas link, and then it's just going to be a function. We're going to add our PHP up here, and then just at the end of it, we're going to create the actual shortcode for it. So we're going to do add shortcode, and then we're going to name that shortcode. Let me see what I named it here. Practice areas. Actually, let's call it the same thing we called it up here. So practice area link, and then we're going to pass the function here, and that's how you create a shortcode. So inside of the shortcode, we're going to use some WordPress coding in order to grab a list of all of the practice areas. So let's create a query, and it's going to be new WP underscore query, and then we're going to pass the array that's inside of this query whenever WordPress goes look for it. So we got an array, and then here we need to pass post type, and it needs to equal practice dash areas, because that's what we called our post type. And then on this one, we're going to do post status, and this one needs to equal publish, so it only grabs the ones that have been published. Post per page. I don't think we really need to have a limit on this, so we're just going to put -1. If we put in 1, it would only show 1. -1 shows everything. And then we're going to order ascending, so ASC, and then we're going to order by, and that's going to be menu order. Basically what this is going to do, it's going to grab all of the published practice areas and it's going to order them by their menu order that we're going to set up in a minute. We only have one right now, so it's only going to display one, and then it's going to order them ascendingly. So first, let's create a variable. So links, make it a blank variable. And then we're going to do while query have post, and then query the post, which this is your basic WordPress query. If get the title I'm looking at my notes here. That's not what I want to do. That was actually from the website that I built for this company. And while we're just going to add to our links, and it's just going to be ahref. Then we're going to add a break tag after it because it's just going to be just a list of links. And then this is going to be get the title, and I'm also going to add in title here, which is going to be get the title as well, just for screen reader purposes. And then here we're going to pass get the permalink. And if you're not familiar with some of the functionality that I'm adding in there right now, this is common WordPress functions. So this grabs the permalink, and obviously this grabs the title. I think that's it for that. Then once we're outside of the WordPress while loop, we're going to run the function wp reset post data. So we're no longer using that while connection. And then we're going to return links. Okay, so now let's copy this shortcode, and I'm going to switch back over to Chrome. And inside of here, let's go to our home page. For this shortcode, we're going to change this to what we just created and hit update. So now, fingers crossed, if we refresh this, we should get a list of practice areas, which we do not. So we have it set up as practice areas link. Is everything published? Let's verify that. It is published. Alright, so let's make sure inside of the UI, called it practice area. Over here we call it practice areas. So let's change that. And now we refresh. Still isn't working. Okay. Well, because I named it wrong, it created it twice. So let's go to edit post types. I'm going to say the first one and delete that. Now we go to practice areas. Okay, we got to do this again. So sample 1, and I need to copy in the lorem ipsum again. Okay, and then publish that. So just FYI, if you followed along, we missed an S whenever we were creating that. So custom fields, let's edit this and change this back to practice area and hit update. Go back in here, and we're just going to copy the first paragraph or the first sentence as our blurb. Update. So now let's refresh. Still isn't showing it. Okay, let me go back to the code and look. So practice dash areas, turn links equals blank. Okay, let me see what that's. Just gonna add an echo there to see if I can get anything to show up, see if it's actually calling it. Doesn't look like it's, oh, okay, I understand what I did. Let me switch back over to the code. So the issue is that we created this file, but we didn't actually call it anywhere. So inside of our functions.php, we are going to create our shortcodes reference down here. Shortcodes. And then we're going to do require once shortcodes / practice areas.php. So it doesn't matter how the file is created, if you don't have anything there that pulls it in, then you won't be able to see it anyway. So now we should be able to see it. There we go. So now it's pointing to the right place, and we click on it, it opens up the right page. So that's what we were looking for. So now this part is going to be a little bit more difficult because each one of these is using its own class inside of Elementor, but we're fixing to take the code outside of Elementor and we're going to try to recreate it on our own. So this is going to be some code changes, and basically the way that I'm going to do this is there is a class that wraps each one of these elements, and if we look at the column 33, that's what I'm looking for, because this is going to be what we need to recreate. So I'm going to copy this element, and then I'm going to switch back to Visual Studio, and inside of our practice areas we are going to create a new shortcode. So let's go create function practice areas, and then in here I'm just going to paste the div code right now so that we can reference it in just a minute. And then I'm also going to copy over this because it's the same thing. We just need to remove link and link. So practice areas. So what we're going to be doing here is essentially the same thing that we're doing here, except that we're going to be creating this Elementor div class in real time. So I think this is good. We don't need to change any of that. And let's go ahead and create a string. And then with Elementor, outside of these columns, you have a class. So we got div class equals Elementor dash row. And then on the outside of it, after this, we're going to have the closing of that div. However, whenever we get ready to close it, since we're going to be doing this dynamically, we are going to have to, let's change this real quick. So when we're doing this, we're going to have to see whether or not it needs to add a new row after it gets to the third column. Because if we don't, it'll just keep going and going and going on one line, which is not what we want. So there's some code in PHP that you can use that will allow you to check to see if a number equals another number. So let me show you that real quick. So we're going to do if %i times 3, because we're wanting to do 3 columns. No, I'm not do percent, it's $. If $i divided by 3 equals 0, then we're going to run something else, and then end if. So if it equals 3, we want it to start a new div. So we need to start the new div, but we also need to close out the old div, like this. And I don't think we need an else. We do not. So let's get rid of this. And I think this also needs to be inside of our while loop. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And then at the end of this, we're going to create a value of, let's say, I equals 1. And then at the end, right after this if statement, we're going to do I plus plus, so that way every time it loops through this while loop, it's going to be adding one number. It's going to increment that I up 1 every time. Okay, so now before this happens, we need to add this code. However, I'm not going to use all of the code. I just have it there for reference right now. So let's go ahead and start typing it. So string period equals, and then I'm going to start it on a new line just so I can kind of keep everything together. So based on this part down here, we need to copy this entire element. But we also don't need all of it. We just need where we don't need, any kind of background data, because that's not important for what we're trying to do. And we also don't need any kind of custom IDs that are added to it. So we can get rid of this data ID as well. All right, so I'm just trying to clean up the code a little bit. So Elementor column 33. Let's see, this is going to be, change at the top. I think I grabbed the first one. And then, so top column, Elementor element. Okay, so that's about all we need for that. So let's go ahead and create that and then close out that one's div. Now, if we look down a little bit further, we don't really need any of this. So just bear with me just a second. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a class that kind of mimics what we did in Elementor without actually doing it in Elementor. So let's go ahead and create that class. So div class equals practice dash area box, and then let's give it another class as homepage dash services. And then inside of that, we want to have a div class content. And you can do it this way, or you can just essentially copy this and paste it in there. But I figured this is a lot of code that you would have to kind of sift through to see what you need and what you don't need. So I'm just going to recreate the look of it without actually doing the Elementor design. Okay, so let me tell you what I did so far. So first we need the Elementor columns, because that's going to structure it the way it has 3 columns. But this, we're going to create that little box that goes around it that is the darker color. And then inside of that, we want to make sure that there's padding, and we want to make sure that we can position the content of the icon box and everything to go up. So speaking of icon box, we're going to do a class equals icon, and then href, and we'll leave that alone for a second. But then we're going to pass in the same thing that they have down here for the Elementor icon. And just like that. And then I think that's all we need for the link, which would be the circle at the top. And then let's do an h4 class title. And let me see, so this one's using h3. I guess we could use an h3 as well. Alright, so let's do h3 title. And then finally we're going to do p class equals description. And this is going to be the blurb. Now, we have to put in the permalink. So this one's the easy part. So you just do get the permalink, just like we did in the previous one. Permalink. And then here for the title, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be get the title. So get the title. And then for this users icon, we actually want to use the icon that's inside of our the selected box that they chose. In order to do that, you have to use a shortcode for advanced custom fields. So let me show you how we do that. And this is where you'd be able to call anything inside of your code through advanced custom fields. So we're going to do shortcode, and then we're going to pass the shortcode ACF field equals icon, because that's what we've called it, and that should be it for that one. So let's copy this, and for the description it's going to be the same thing, but it's going to be the blurb. Okay, so I think that would be all that we need. I'm going to keep this commented out right now until I can test it, just to make sure that it's doing what we want it to do. So let's save that, and I'm going to switch over back to the browser, and inside of our home page we want to add, let's just add a new section for shortcode, and inside the shortcode we're going to just add it right above everything else. So the shortcode, what do we call it? Practice areas. So we're just going to do practice areas and update. So as you can see from that window, it was pulling the practice area 1 with the book icon. There's no styling associated with it, but it's pulling the same thing that would normally go here. So now we just need to make it look pretty. So I'm going to switch over to Visual Studio real quick, and we have this class here. This is the class we're going to be using because we want to make sure that whenever it uses some of the functionality or some of the styles from it, because we're going to use this in another section that's not going to be on the home page. So for right now, we're going to do this homepage services in our style sheet, and this is where we're going to style it at to make it look like the other part of it. So the homepage services, we know that it needs to be positioned relative, and we know this because the icon and the content is going to be positioned relative as well, and it's going to be pushed up a little bit. So we want to make sure that it's positioned, that part's positioned relatively inside of this one. And let's do a min height on it of I don't know, let's try 275 pixels, and we're going to do text align center and then color white. So let's check that out, see what it looks like, and open up Chrome and refresh. So it's getting there. I mean, it still has a lot of work to do, but it's getting to where we need it at. So now we need to work on the content part of it. So let's switch back over to Visual Studio, and inside of the content we want to create another class, homepage services content, and then inside of this is what we're going to position relative again, and then we're going to do top -40 pixels. Okay, so now let's style the icon. So homepage services homepage services dot icon, because if we come back over here to look at our code, we have the content and then we have the icon. So the content just got pushed up. Now we're going to style the icon to look the way we want it to. So there's two ways to do the background color. The way I've been doing it so far has been using this hex code, but because of the way that we created it inside of Elementor, we created this global variable for the primary color. We're going to use that one instead, and I'll probably go up here and change this as well. So let's do background dash color, and it's going to be var minus minus e dash global dash color dash primary, and I'll show you where I got this at in just a second. And then let's do fill, because we want the icon itself to be white, and because it's the icon, let's go ahead and do the color as white as well. And then the font size 33 pixels, I think is probably pretty close to what we're looking for. Padding, let's do a rim for this one. So let's do let's do an EM. Do 0.5 EM. So it gives it some dynamic padding. And then let's do a border radius of 50%, so it makes it a circle. And then we align that center. And everything that I'm doing will become clear in just a second. Let's do display inline block. And let's make the width of the icon itself 80 pixels. And we'll verify that against what we already have there in just a second. Alright, so let me show you what this looks like, and then I'll change it up here as well. So I'm going to save that, and we're going to switch back to Chrome, and let's do a refresh. And now we have a circular icon. Our icon's a little bit smaller than it is down here. So let's see what kind of sizing that they have on their icon. So they have height 1 EM, width 1 EM. That's for the icon itself. So we want to have the icon box. Icon box icon. Margin bottom 15. That's not what I'm looking for. Content. Well, then it has to be in here. Height and width 1 EM. I don't think that's what I'm looking for. Alright, so let's see how we can increase ours, since ours is a little bit easier to handle right now. So let's do, instead of doing 80 pixels, let's try to increase the padding maybe. That's about the right height. So let's do the width, and let's make it a circle. Alright, so that's about as close as we're going to get to the circle. So let's copy from the padding to the width, and now go back to Visual Studio, padding to width. And I'm just verifying it, so that works. Okay, so now we need to do the actual box that's around it, which would be, I believe, the content. No, not the content. Okay, so one thing that you did see was this worked. So we're going to take this variable and we're going to paste it here and paste it here, just so we can be a little more concise with the design of it. So now I think that we need to do the practice area box. So let's come down here and we're going to do practice area box. I think that's what we called it. Practice area box. Okay. And then for this one, let's see what we can do. The background color, making it the text color maybe. And see how that works. We're gonna have to add some padding and some margin to it. So let's do padding 25 pixels, and we'll test it out, see how everything looks. So margin 15 pixels around it. Okay. So that might be all that we need here. So let's switch back over to our browser and refresh. Okay, so it's doing what we want it to do, but it's not pushing the content up like I was expecting it to. It's also a different color, so let's see what color this background is using. Looks like it's using the secondary color. So I'm going to go ahead and switch that over from text to secondary. And then we're going to refresh again. Okay, so that's looking better, but now we got to get the content to move up. So let's see how we're going to do that. If we highlight the content, why is the content? Okay, I see what I did wrong here. Let's switch back over to here, I did not put an S, so that's why it's not positioned where it should be. So now if I save that and switch back to Chrome, there we go. So it's popping up a little bit, so let's make it pop up a little bit more. So instead of doing 40 pixels, let's change that to, let's do 50 pixels. And then refresh. That's better. Okay, so it looks very similar to it. So that's kind of the direction that I'm wanting to go with it. So now what we need to do is see what it looks like with multiples to make sure that we need to do at least 3 more to make sure that it can wrap the way it's supposed to using the PHP code that we've done. So let's get out of here, and I'm going to install a plugin just to make this a little bit easier, and I believe it's called duplicate or clone, maybe clone. Yeah, let's do, yeah, no, duplicate page will be fine. Again, I don't own or endorse any of these plugins. You can use whatever plugins that you want that still suits your needs. So this one's just one that I've used before that's pretty easy. So let's go to the practice areas, and we're going to duplicate this. Let's do a quick edit on it. Change it to sample 2. And then let's scroll down here and give it the corporate building, publish it. Now that that's published, we should be able to go over here, refresh, and we see a second one that's appeared. Okay, before we get too far into it, I'm not seeing the little section down here that lets you type in which order that you want it to go in. So we need to go to our custom UI, and there has to be a setting over here for that. So let's look at it. Items list, I don't need any of that right now. Has an archive. Menu position. Okay, that's not it. Menu icon, that's not supports. That might be where it needs to go. So if I come over, let me look at my notes. No, that's not it. Page attributes. Okay, that's it. And we can also get rid of featured image because we don't need a featured image for it. Now let's go back to our practice areas. Sample 1, we're going to make this be order ID of 1. And then we're going to make this one be order ID of 2. Okay, so now let's create a third one. So we're going to duplicate this. We're going to edit it, change this to 3, make this a 3, go to the third icon, publish. So that should give us our final on this row. So the next one that we create should go down to the next row. So let's duplicate this again and make it order 4, sample 4, with the puzzle piece icon, publish. And now if we refresh, there it is. So it goes down to the next row because it's outside of that 3 that we coded for in the PHP. So now we can go to the Elementor home, and we can delete this. What is this? Oh, that's the, no, what is this? Oh, okay, that's the what our clients think text. So now let's get rid of that. And you can continue adding as many as you want to here. We'll probably end up with the 6 because that's what's in the design. So let's go ahead and just add 2 more. So let's do duplicate this and duplicate it again. And let's do edit, fix, 5, trying to do 5 and 6 at the same time. 5, let's select the question mark, publish it, go back, We're going to do 6. 6, and then let's select user with tie, publish. Okay, so now if we refresh this, we should have 6 of them. And we also have 6 of them here because this is also pulling from a shortcode as well. I think that with the custom post type, we've created it, we've edited it, we've allowed the shortcodes. So let's say, like, right now they don't know what order these are in. We do because of how we name them. But let's give them the ability to see what order they're in. And in order to do so, I'm going to switch back over to Visual Studio and we're going to create some columns. So we don't need this anymore because it looks the way we want it to. And let's save that. Then at the bottom of our practice areas, we are going to add some WordPress functionality to create these columns. So first thing we need to do is add filter, manage, and then this is the shortcode, not shortcode, but the custom post type permalink. So it's going to be practice dash areas underscore post columns. And then we're going to create a function. We're just going to call it practice areas columns. So now let's create that function. So function, and let me just copy this. Practice area columns, and then we're going to pass the WordPress variable columns. Okay, well I can't do it that way, so let's do underscore. PHP doesn't like whenever you name functions with a dash. Okay, so let's say we want to restructure how our columns currently are. So there's a few defaults that you need to know about, and they are CB, which stands for the checkbox. If you forget to add the checkbox here, it will remove the checkbox where they can't use it. The next one is going to be title. And if I don't add them here, they get removed from the list. And I don't want to remove what's there. I just want to add something to it, which I guess I could just do, you know, an array, just add to an array. So, but I'm just showing you the way that I would normally do it. And this needs to be capitalized. Let's see, order is going to be the new variable that we create so that they can know what order they're in. And then we're going to keep the date as it is as well. Let's just pass on the date here. Alright, so we have our array, and I don't think it has comments or anything like that, so we don't need to worry about unsetting anything right now. But that's what we need to do. So I'll show you what this looks like. It's not going to have anything in it right now because we haven't created that functionality to display what's in it. But if we refresh this page, maybe. Okay, let's go back to the code. I might have missed something. Usually that part's pretty straightforward. So manage, okay, practice areas. Okay, everything else should be right. So let's switch back. Apparently this has been a very long video. And there's no for each loop. Okay, let's finish the code and then we'll look at it in the browser. It might have to be where you populate the rest of it as well. So let me make sure I got this right. So add filter, manage underscore practice areas, and that is what it is called up there. Post columns, and then we call the practice underscore areas underscore columns. Then we got our array, CB, title, order, date. We're not returning anything. So we need to return the newly created columns. And now, if we go back to Chrome, it's going to do exactly what it should have been doing. which is adding an order column. So I figured that was a lot easier than it was sounding. I am extremely tired right now, but let's keep chugging along. Alright, so now we have the column that we want, so we need to fill that column. So we're going to do function practice underscore, no, I'm doing the function first, add filter, and then we're going to do manage underscore edit practice areas underscore sortable columns, and then we're going to pass the function, and let's just name it something like this, but we're going to add sortable on it, so sortable columns. And now we can go in there and create our function. So function here, and then we're going to pass the columns again. And now we're going to do columns order, because that's what we called it in the previous function. Columns order equals order, and this is going to give it the ability for us to sort the values that are in there. But now we need to actually produce the values. Okay, so let's do another filter. Add, no, not a filter. Add action, manage practice areas, and we need to have a single quote before it and after it. Manage practice areas post custom column, and let's just go ahead and copy this again, because we're going to create a function that's very similarly named. Practice area columns, and let's just do show columns. And now let's create our function for this. Function practice area show columns. We're going to pass column name, and then we're going to do global post. That way it gathers all of the information that we need. And then we're going to do if column, why do I keep doing that? If column name equals order, and then echo post menu order, because that's what we're setting up inside of the post whenever we do it, is the 0, the 1, 2, or the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. That's the menu order that we want them to be in. So now let's save that, and we're going to go back to Chrome and refresh, and now we have our menu order that we can also sort by. So now we can see which one's in which order. Okay, so I think for custom post types for the practice areas, that is pretty much done here.
And with that, I think that we are done with this one. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up for me. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I got plenty of other videos like this, so make sure you do subscribe. And if you want to use the plugins, then you can use the plugins, or you can create your own custom meta boxes and your custom post types. I have other videos in my channel where I go over how I've done that in the past without using plugins, but I figured for this video it would be easier for maybe a beginner that's getting started to kind of figure out how everything works together before diving into creating their own custom post types. But if you have any questions, hit me up with a comment below. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.